Yeah, good morning. So, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, let's start. So, yesterday we had just begun discussion on this issue about how to write programming language translators, that is both compilers and interpreters. And we've also discussed about how we could, how people could have developed the first translator or the first programming language. Let's take this discussion in detail today. And this entire process is called as bootstrapping. So let's start. So this slide also we had seen yesterday. So whenever we define a translator, it's defined using what is called as a T diagram. So the picture which we have shown here is called as a T diagram. So it has three things in it. So on the leftmost side is the source language, which is input to the translator. Okay, and on the right hand side is the target language. So the translator is supposed to translate a program written in the source language to an equivalent program in the target language. Okay, and the language in which the translator itself is written in is shown in the third leg of this T, which is bottom. Okay, so that is the implementation language of the translator. So let's take from this point. So this entire process is, as we said, is called as bootstrapping. Okay, so the notion of implementing a language by means of using part of that language's own implementation. So this is something which we will discuss in detail and will become clear as we progress through the slides. So this is this notation of a T diagram. So let's say that this seems to be a complicated picture, but let's assume, and it will become very easy, clear, and pretty easy to understand. So let's assume for the time being that we have a C compiler available with us. Okay, and that compiler works on a hardware on a target machine, let's say M. Let's say that is the hardware, the CPU on which we are running our programs. And the compiler actually translates any C language program into the target language program itself, that is the machine language M itself. So let's say M is the machine language. And whenever we say that we have a compiler available for C on some processor, then we actually mean by saying that we have the executable version of the compiler available with us. Right? So executable version would mean that compiler itself can run on the machine M. So therefore, this inner T diagram, I hope you are able to see my mouse movements. The inner T diagram, which has source as C, the target as M, and the implementation language as M itself, represents the C compiler which we have. Okay, so it takes any C program and it translates it into an equivalent program written in machine language M. And the compiler itself is written in the machine language M. Okay, that is the executable version is available. Now, whenever we submit our own program, let's say we call it as an application, which we have written in C, and we feed that application into this compiler. So it's our C program. So the source which is required by the compiler is a C program, and therefore the source coincides. What the compiler does is translates this application C program into an equivalent program written in M. So this is this output which is shown here. So the same application now the executable version which can run on this machine M is produced. And this application now we can, run on the machine M. That is, it is in the executable form. So the object language or the target language of the compiler is what is produced, is the equivalent program for this application that is being translated into. And the compiler itself, as we see, since the implementation language is M, it can itself execute on the machine M. Okay, because we have the executable version of the compiler. Right. So let's take this idea a little further. So let's say we want to now develop a compiler for some language. Let's assume that the language we want is for which we want to develop a compiler is Pascal language, and we want to design the compiler so that it produces an executable code which can run on this processor. Let's call the processor as M. So essentially, we want this this particular translator whose source language is Pascal. That is, any program written in Pascal it can take as an input, and this translator translates that program written in Pascal to an equivalent program that can execute on the machine M. So the target language is M, and the compiler itself runs on the target language, target processor M. So therefore, we need to have the executable version of the compiler that works on this machine M. So the question is, how do we build this particular compiler? Okay, so let's consider the first probable possibility which we can have. That is, the easiest thing. So first of all, we can write the compiler directly by hand. That is, write all the system software, the algorithms, etc., whatever is required for building the compiler or the translator in general, and we write it in the machine language itself. Well, as we discussed yesterday, this is an extremely tough task. Okay, machine language just understands binary. So if we assume that we have a support of an assembler with us, which takes any program written in assembly language equivalent to this for this processor M, and that assembler translates that assembly language program into a machine language program understood by M, then we could take help of the assembler. So therefore, we can now write the compiler in the assembly language. But that also does not help us much, because yesterday itself we had discussed that even to write a small sorting program, something like bubble sort, in a higher level language, it's like around 10 to 15 lines of code. But if you try to write it in assembly language, it will require quite a bit of an effort, maybe roughly around 50 or more lines of. Now we are talking of writing this entire compiler, okay, which is a huge mammoth task. So therefore, writing it in assembly is extremely tough. Then what are the options? So that is what we would now be considering. Okay, let's not take this further. So let's assume that we already have a support of some other compiler available with us for another language. Let's say that language is L. So we have an existing compiler of L. Okay, so which means just take a look at this inner T diagram, which is this L compiler. So essentially, it takes any program written in L and it translates into an equivalent program written in M for that machine M. And we have the executable version of this particular compiler. So the implementation language is also M. So now instead of writing this translator in assembly, we can use this language L, which might be a higher level language, such as C, for example. So could we now write this particular compiler, the Pascal compiler, which translates any program given in Pascal and converts it into an equivalent program which works on this machine M. Okay, so the machine code, the target language, and the implementation language of the compiler is this language L itself, because we now know that we have the compiler of L available with us. Okay, so now suppose we are able to write this program. So first question is this easier for us to write than writing this compiler in assembly? Of course, it is easier, right? We are using a higher level language now to develop the compiler rather than using the assembly language. By the way, whenever these processor manufacturers, they come out with new CPUs, in order for the CPU to be usable, of course, the CPU has its own machine language, but they also provide an assembler for the CPU. So the computers manufacturers themselves come out with an assembler so that at least the users of those CPUs can write programs in assembly. Okay, and as we had discussed earlier, assembler is that translator which translates an assembly language program into machine language. Okay, so even though we have support of an assembler, since writing of this compiler is tough in assembly language, we now have this facility of writing this compiler in a higher level language L, which we assume that it is much more convenient and easier for us to do. Okay, so the Pascal to M translator we have written in L. And now since that translator is a program in L, we can send it to this L compiler, the translator which we already have, and therefore it will give us an equivalent version of this Pascal compiler. But now that version would work on this machine M. So that is the target language of the translator. So essentially, what we have got is now a translator that translates any Pascal program into this target language M, and the translator itself now works on this machine M. Okay, because we would have produced the executable version of the translator. So what is it that we have produced out here? Well, what we have produced is a Pascal compiler now, that is the executable version of the Pascal compiler, which works on this machine M. And now this entire block, which is this executable version of the Pascal compiler, can take any Pascal program, and it compiles that Pascal program into an executable code which can now work on this machine M. And since we have the executable version of this Pascal compiler, the compiler itself can work on this machine M. So before I proceed, I just want to know, is this clear? Is this idea clear? If there are any questions, please ask now, because we will be building upon this. Yeah, so Kaushal has asked a good question. So wouldn't it be difficult to write the translator which translates from L to M? Well, exactly. Pulkit also has the same question. So this is a tough question. I will take it up, but let me be a little slow so that everybody is in sync with what I'm saying. Of course, the first translator, the L compiler that has been shown out here, is tough to write. So let's postpone this discussion of developing the first compiler a little later, maybe today or in tomorrow's lecture. But we are making an assumption that such a compiler exists. Now, if that compiler exists, what we want to do is, could we actually develop a compiler for a new language and a different language, for example, Pascal out here? Okay, so I will take this question. I'm not skirting the question here, but let me be a little slower till I am confident that this is understood. Yeah. Any other question? Is the mechanism clear? Because we would be using multiple such T diagrams, so you should be be able to you should be conversant with the diagram, the terminology that is used. Okay, fine. So I suppose that that this is clear. Okay. So what we have done here is we have kind of reduced this issue of writing the compiler in assembly language to this question of writing the compiler in some existing higher level language, L. Okay, but this also is too much of work. That is, I'm now saying not the compiler, L compiler that is present. Let's assume that is available with us. But even the first translator, that is Pascal to M translator L, that itself might be a big project to go ahead with. So that also is too much of work. Can we reduce this effort as well? That's the question which people try to answer. So let's take this possibility now. So first is, instead of writing the translator for the entire language Pascal, okay, which might have hundreds of features present in it, what we do is pick up a subset of that entire programming language Pascal, and let's say that subset is denoted by this symbol P. So P is a subset of Pascal, and you would also agree. And as we go through this course towards right till the end, you will understand that we can implement anything if we have support of three statements or three or four kind of statements. One is we have support for transfer of control, that is jump kind of thing. We have support for assignment. We have support for of a conditional statement, and we have support of, let's say, the while loop. So if we have support for an assignment, an if statement, and a while statement, we could potentially implement any of the features that any programming language might support. Why am I saying this? Well, look at assembly language programs themselves. What does an assembly language program tell us or provide us with? You have programmed a little bit in the microprocessors course, and you would be introduced to some instruction sets in the computer organization course also. So typically the assembly language instructions are kind of move, compare, add some arithmetic instructions, jump on some flags. So those are so loop, move, and jump. These are the three kinds of, exactly. Darshan has nailed it perfectly. So these are the three kinds of instructions which are there. So that is move and jump and compare, perform some arithmetic. And what we know that anything can be written in assembly, however complicated that might be, but it is inconvenient for us to do that, right? However, it's not impossible. So it can be done, and any program can be written just using these three kind of statements, right? So what we do is smartly we pick up some subset P of this entire language Pascal, and now we develop a translator, a compiler for this small subset P. And that translator we develop in a higher level language using all the features that are available for L. So L may be a higher level language, like for example, like C, and we have chosen a small subset P of this entire language Pascal. And now we write this particular translator of P to M in this language L. Correct? And now we send it through the L compiler, which we assume we have available with us. So therefore, it produces now this translator from P to M. And now this is the executable version. So it works on this machine. So this is this first step. Is this step clear? Okay, it's not clear. So Vishaka, could you please unmute and ask? Vishaka?
Yes, sir. Will you please explain it again, like in short?
Yeah, okay, I'll do that. So what we are doing here is that initially we had written this translator for this entire programming language Pascal. Okay, Pascal to M translator we had written in this high level language L. But now what we are saying is, since that might itself be a big effort, what we are saying is we don't write the translator for the entire language Pascal. We smartly choose a small subset of Pascal, let's say few facilities or few features of Pascal, something like an assignment statement, an if statement, and some kind of a while loop. So we take only three statements which are which might be there in any in the Pascal programming language, and now develop this translator from P to M using this language L. So what this means is any program which is written in P, that is, it only has these three constructs supported, we can have an equivalent machine code version of any program which uses only the constructs written in P. However, for the implementation of the translator, we use this entire support of this higher level language L. And then since this is a program in L, we feed it to the L compiler, which we assume is already available with us. And we get the executable version of this translator that translates any program written in P to an equivalent program written in language M. And since this is the executable version, we can run it on the processor. Is it clear now, or there is still some?
Yes, sir. It's clear.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Anybody else? It's if there is a difficulty, please ask now, because this is just the first step that we have shown. Okay, so I assume that that this is clear. So with this now chain, this pipeline, as we can call it, here. So what we have supported now is this programming language P, not the entire programming language Pascal, but the small subset that we have chosen. Okay, which might be just a few features like assignment and if statement and while statement. Now, what we can do? Well, let's now expand this set. So now we have support of P here. Suppose now we want a support of more features of the Pascal language. So P had the bare minimum features, and we implemented that in L. So if you want to create a more elaborate subset, so let's call it as P dash. Okay, so P dash is a superset of P, but it is still a subset of Pascal. Now we can write the translator for P dash okay, in P itself, instead of using L. And since P is, is closer to the facilities that are provided in the Pascal programming language, this particular translator might be easier for us to write. So we take another subset P dash. We write a translator of P dash to M written in P, and we pass that particular translator through this pipeline. Since this P dash to P translator is in P, we pass it through this pipeline because we have the executable version of the translator for P already available. Okay, and therefore we get the executable version of this translator P dash to P for this, P dash to M for this machine M. Okay, this is one way with which we could implement this. But this is also a little tough. Why should I now write a translator for P dash directly to M? I can actually write a translator from P dash to P itself and write the translator in P. Okay, so what I'm saying is I choose a superset of P, let's call it as P dash. I write a translator from P dash to P, which is easy. Easy in the sense the translated version is also a higher level language, not the machine code itself. And that translator, I write it in P. Okay, and I feed it to this entire pipeline. So now I have an executable version of the translator that translates any program written in P dash to an equivalent program written in P. And that program, I again feed it through this pipeline once more to get the executable version of the program written in P dash. Okay, so this is the second step, which is kind of non-trivial. What I have discussed here. Is this clear? Yeah. Okay. Great. So now what we can do? Well, we can keep on, having a more and more, expressive subsets of Pascal. So from P dash, we go to P double dash, which is a superset of P dash, P double dash to, P4 until we reach this entire facility of Pascal. And that is what is shown out here. Okay, so suppose I am able to now write this translator from Pascal to M, but now written in P. Okay, so this particular thing has actually skipped many steps that could be there. However, if you see the second bullet, this says that theoretically this process can go on indefinitely. That is, indefinitely in the sense we choose these supersets one at a time. So from P we go to P dash to P double dash to P triple dash, and so on and so forth until we reach this entire language Pascal. Okay, so we write this Pascal to M translator now written in P, and we feed it to this which we had, or this particular translator which we had created in the earlier step. Okay, so we have P to M translator working on M, and finally we get Pascal to M translator, the executable version of that for this machine M, which can now take any Pascal program, translate it into the machine language M, and it is an executable version, so it works on this machine. And if P is chosen well, that is, the subset is chosen well, the P to M compiler and the Pascal to M compiler, which is written in P, that is shown in this step, are easier to write than this entire Pascal to M compiler in N, which was the earlier approach which we had followed. Is this clear now? Yeah. So if this is clear, now let's have a discussion about how the first programming language translator could have been built by Bacchus, by John Bacchus. Anybody wishes to have a go at this?
Sir, probably implemented a small. He chose P and implemented a small subset in machine language. I mean the
assembly language.
Wrote a small subset. Yeah, assembly language or machine language, and then he wrote the rest of the program in Fortran itself, the compiler.
Correct. Or he chose multiple such supersets. Okay, so and they don't need to go entirely out here. So this actually misses one step. So suppose I have P dash. I write the translator for P dash in P, but the translator actually translates it into an equivalent program in P rather than this hardware, straight away hardware instruction M. That is the machine language M. Okay, so instead of saying Pascal to P, I can actually, let me just update this slide. Please bear with me. Let me just update this slide to show what exactly we could do. So I'm, kind of stopping this sharing, and I will come back on the sharing again. So let me just stop this. Yeah, is this slide visible now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So here is something which I can do, a little in a more intelligent way. So instead of now translating it from Pascal to M, suppose I write a translator from Pascal to P, written in P. Okay. And then flow it through the already created translator for P. What this will give me is this particular translator, that is Pascal to P, but the executable version of that. And let me not just say Pascal, let me say this is P dash. Okay, so now I have a P dash to P translator written in P. I flow it through the already created P translator, which translates into machine language. So what now I have is this P dash to P translator, the executable version of that. Okay, so what does it take now as an input? Any program written in P dash, it translates it into an equivalent program in P, which can now I flow it through this translator again to give me the executable version of the program written in P dash. And now I can build up, on P dash to P double dash. For P double dash, I use this translator now because I can write this translator now in P dash instead of P. So if I let's say have P double dash, I create a translator of P double dash to to P dash now. And this translator, I can write it in P dash. P dash is more expressive than P. So this translator I can write in P dash. I flow it through the P dash compiler that we have created, and it will generate an executable out there. Okay, these steps are kind of missing in the slides, but I will update the slides and we will take up this question again. Okay, in the next class. But I hope that this is clear now. What we are actually trying to do out here, we are kind of reducing the effort that we want to write something in assembly or something in machine language. Okay, we want to use the facility of already existing compilers and already existing machine languages. Already existing programming language or a subset of those languages to implement these compilers. Well, there is a question by Tanay. Wouldn't this kind of implementation have a large compile time? Well, even if we write the entire compiler in one go, the effort involved will be roughly the same. Okay. And typically, we will not be too much worried about large compile time because this is a one-time activity. Okay, so compilation is one-time activity. We get the executable code and run it. Okay, so Tanay has modified the question. I mean compile time and not the development time. Well, the compilation step, as you have rightly said, is now a multiple step. We write, the Pascal compiler first gets translated into one equivalent program in one subset, and then that gets translated into an equivalent program, let's say, in another subset, and so on and so forth. So we get these multiple files which we have to compile at every step to go ahead. That is that the compilation time would be larger, definitely, but that is still not a problem for us because it is a one time. However, developing something right from scratch in assembly language is a huge pain, and that is precisely something which we want to avoid. Okay, and that's what this ingenuity which was demonstrated by Bacchus. So initially, let's say he started with a small subset of Fortran, let's call it as F0. He wrote the translator for F0 to the assembly language instructions. Let's say the assembler took assembly language in A. So he wrote the translator of F0 to A, and that was written in A. So we got an equivalent program written in A, which was then given to the assembler to generate the executable. And now we have support for F0. So we chose another subset F1, which is a superset of F0, wrote the translator of F1 to F0 now in F0. Okay, and that translator was then fed through the earlier pipeline to give the executable version of the translator from F1 to F0. Okay, so now this takes any program written in F1 and translates it into an equivalent program in F0, which now needs to be flown through the earlier translator which we had created, which translates it into assembly, which goes through the assembler to give us the executable. And so on and so forth. We keep on building until this entire programming language translator for Fortran is available. Okay, so that is this idea and of bootstrapping. Right. If there are no questions, if there are any questions from anybody, I request them to either unmute or type on the chat window. I'll pause for a minute here because this is a little non-intuitive, and this bootstrapping is something which surprises many, that how we can write the first step. And now we will also see that how the same programming language actually is used for implementing the compiler for that language itself. Right. So if this is not, if there are no questions here, let me just proceed ahead. So now let's say we have a compiler or a translator for. Okay, so Pulkit has a question about interpreting. Well, the approach remains the same. So therefore, these T diagrams can be used either with the compilation approach or with the interpretation approach. We are just saying it's a translator. So the interpreter also keeps on working on this in one at a time. So it is translating a program in P dash to P, at runtime. And therefore, Pulkit's question is correct out here, that wouldn't take too much of time because everything is happened during running time. That happens on the go. Well, of course, it does take time. And that's why interpreted programs are tough. So will take quite some time before they give out their results, and therefore there are other strategies to handle this. I think some of these might be discussed in the language processors course, and some of it we will kind of discuss in this course as well. So what we could do is, instead of making these repeated translations, okay, we could build. So we have one-time effort of having these repeated translators or these repeated translations done by the interpreter themselves, and then prepare one executable which does the entire thing in one go, so that we have less amount of effort during execution. So those are called as just-in-time compilers. Okay, which is another approach which says take that the high level language statement now written in this in the language that is to be interpreted, and at runtime prepare a compiled version of that piece of code. Therefore, it might run fast. Okay, so that approach is sometimes used, but the problem still remains. Interpreted programming languages will require lot of time, much more time in doing that interpretation stuff, and therefore they will require more time for execution. Okay, and so typically for rapid prototyping, that is to demonstrate that something works, and if you want to use a lot of flexibility, we use this interpreted programming languages. And then we actually, if time is a constraint, and that's most often the constraint, if our code is going to be used, let's say we have a piece of code that gets hit once every millisecond, or let's say 100 times every millisecond, then the speed at which it executes matters. Then we have to go for this compiler. Okay, so I hope this answers the question. Is there any other question? Fine. So let me proceed ahead now. So now with this, what we have achieved is this translator of some high level language, okay, and the executable version of the translator for high level language for this machine M. Now let us say the hardware industry has come up with another processor M dash, okay, which has its own machine language and assembly language instructions. And now we want to support this high level language, let's say Pascal itself, into the translator into this new processor M dash. So how do we build this translator into M dash is the question that we would be asking. Okay, so M dash is a new processor. So this is this. So now let's suppose we wish to port this programming language Pascal to a new machine M dash. Here, it means that any program now written in Pascal, we should be able to run it or have the equivalent version which runs on this machine M dash. What are the options? Well, the first option, which was writing the entire thing in M dash, that something which we had done for M, we could repeat the same thing for M dash as well. Okay, but now we are more intelligent, and that's what Pulkit has actually told us. So we need to port this P0 which we have created, the small subset, and port it to M dash. Correct. My question is, what is the programming language that we will use, the implementation language, to write this translator? So how will we write the P0 to M dash translator? Yeah, if possible, using some other higher level language, or otherwise assembly. Okay, fine. But we already have support for P0, right? Which works on this machine M. Okay, we have P0 to M support already available. So we could actually write the translator in P0 itself. The executable version of the translator now will work on the processor M. Okay, and there is another approach which Gaurav has raised. Gaurav says, could we write a translator of M to M dash? Would it be easier for us to write this translator M to M dash than the translator P0 to M dash? Which one of them would be easier? Yeah, so Gaurav has said it correctly. Yeah, right. So if these machines M and M dash have very similar instruction sets, then writing this translator from M to M dash might be easier. Okay, and how would we write this translator from M to M dash? Should we write it in assembly language, or we can write these translators in P0 now because we have support for P0. Okay, so we can write this translator M to M dash M to M dash translator can be written in P0 because we have support of P0 on machine M. Okay, since we have support of P0 on machine M, we could write this M to M dash translator in P0 and then use it elsewhere. But why should we use only the restricted set P0? We could use the entire high level language Pascal itself. Since we already have this entire pipeline of supporting the Pascal programming language, we could as well use this entire high level language. Wouldn't it be much more easier than using P0? Okay, so what I'm trying to show out here is that these, once we have support of something already available, which is the most expressive language that we have built so far, now we can use that language to build up a translator for a simpler translator using this entire higher level language support itself, because we have this entire pipeline of supporting Pascal. Okay, we have support of Pascal on M. Is this idea clear? Okay, I will take it up further because there is a small non-trivial step involved out here as well, which I think we will postpone it for the next lecture. Okay, where we show how these even with this translator we have one more step that needs to be done, which we will discuss in the next. So I think we are almost out of our time, so we will stop here. Unless there are any questions, we have a minute or so. If there are questions, please unmute or type. Otherwise, we will end the lecture. Yeah, in the first assignment, yeah, correct. So if we require natural algorithm to calculate the Taylor series. Yeah, I know. Yeah, right. So take help of that. So you can use mat.h to implement the facility, or you don't. For real numbers, I will spare you the effort of writing the natural logarithm function itself. So you can use mat.h to use that log function. You might also need to use this exponent function also, exp also. That is e power something.
But sir, we are implementing the exponential function.
No. I'm saying e power something.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, that also probably for the Taylor series expansion. Now, how would you use the Taylor series expansion? So you are essentially saying e power, so x power y is the same as, so you take log of both the sides. You take y log x is the same as, so let's say x power y is z. So you say y log x is the same as log z. And then you take the inverse. So you take e power of that to get this value z. So e power y log x would give you this value z which we are looking for. Is that how you would be using the Taylor series?
Sir, I guess we only require the log function or the exponential function. I mean, first we convert it into an exponential function, then we write the expansion of it, which requires only log function.
Okay, fine.
I think
So
someone
if you,
else has written
oh
it.
yes, yeah, Prabhav has saying so this Taylor series expansion is 1 plus y log x plus y log x to the power 2 by 2 factorial. Okay, I didn't know of this. So this is the Taylor series expansion of x power y. Yeah, it
Yes,
is
sir.
basically e power y log x. Yeah, fine. Okay. Right. Okay, fine. So, write an efficient piece of code here. I don't want you to calculate factorials definitely. And how long do you want to go? How many terms you want to use? That you should be able to say based on the precision that is required. Okay, I'm sure you have heard of this. You would have written program for sin x, right? Sin x is x minus x cubed by factorial 3 and so on. So you don't calculate all the factorials. You use the previous terms to efficiently calculate the next term. Right? So let's have an efficient implementation, and credit would be given for efficient implementation definitely, rather than using something which is brute force. Yeah, correct. So Kaushal is right. So we use some multiplier terms with the previous term for an efficient computation. Yeah, correct. Right. Right. So shall we end this lecture? Okay. So see you in the next lecture now. Goodbye.